It started with a smirk, not just any smirk, but his. Elon Musk, tech titan, billionaire, and self-proclaimed master of logic, leaned back in his first-class seat, his eyes lazily scanning the passengers entering the VIP section of the transatlantic flight from New York to London. He wasn't used to sharing space or attention. Then he walked in. Keanu Reeves. Wearing a simple black cotton shirt, faded jeans, and old sneakers. He didn't draw attention with wealth, but with presence. Calm, grounded, untouched by the noise. Around his neck, catching just enough cabin light to shine softly, hung a small silver crucifix. Not flashy. Not loud. Just there, simple, worn. Elon noticed. Everyone did. But Elon said what others didn't dare. Loud enough for 3 rows to hear, yet just quiet enough to seem casual, he chuckled. I thought logic replaced superstition long ago. The words sliced the air like a knife wrapped in velvet. A few laughs followed, short, awkward, unsure. Then came silence. Thick, heavy, like the cabin itself was holding its breath. Keanu didn't flinch. He turned, calm as ever, with the quiet gaze of a man who had weathered storms deeper than anyone there could imagine. No anger. No sarcasm. Just presence. Elon turned away, looking smug. But the smirk didn't land the way he'd hoped. Something shifted. A woman paused mid-sip of her champagne. A businessman lowered his tablet. The mood changed, and it was just beginning. The flight attendant, young and clearly nervous, greeted Keanu as he took seat 2A, directly across from Elon. Her eyes paused on the necklace, but she said nothing. A smart choice. Keanu sat down, gently adjusted the crucifix over his shirt, and looked out the window, completely unfazed. But the atmosphere wasn't. It had turned electric. Tense. Like the plane itself sensed something bigger was about to unfold. Because this wasn't just 2 celebrities sharing a flight. This was different. It was spirit versus ego. Soul versus steel. Meaning versus mockery. Keanu didn't respond. Not yet. But the look in his eyes made one thing clear: this wasn't over. Not even close. And if you think Elon Musk was ready for what Keanu was about to say next, think again. Because when a man with nothing to prove finally chooses to speak, the world listens. And trust me, so will you. What happens next will make your heart race, your mind spin, and your soul go still. So before we take off into this unbelievable story, do one thing: hit that like button and drop a 9 in the comments if you've ever been judged for something deeply personal. You'll want to remember this moment. Because what's coming? It's going to shake the entire cabin, maybe even the world. The cabin settled into a false calm, the kind that shows up just before a storm. Keanu sat still in seat 2A, hands resting gently in his lap. The small crucifix on his chest caught soft flickers of light from the overhead glow. Across the aisle, Elon adjusted the cuffs of his tailored suit, stealing another look at Keanu with that same smug curiosity, like a chess player eyeing his next move. He couldn't help himself. Elon had built empires by questioning everything, by challenging tradition, by treating emotion like weakness. And now, sitting across from someone who radiated quiet conviction, he couldn't resist going further. You know, Elon said aloud, his voice balancing between casual and calculated, symbols like that used to mean something. Now they're just nostalgia. For people scared to think for themselves. His words floated like silk-covered darts. Not loud, but sharp enough to land. This time, more people noticed. A man across the aisle, mid-40s, raised an eyebrow. A young woman 2 rows back looked up from her book. The tension returned, thicker now, heavier. Keanu didn't move. Not frozen, fully present. The kind of presence no one can fake. He slowly turned, locking eyes with Elon, truly, for the first time. No anger. No challenge. Just depth. Elon looked away, but only for a second. Then came that smirk again. He tapped at his phone and muttered, "Bet this'll trend before we even land." His arrogance hung in the air like smoke. And then, something small, but powerful, broke the silence. A quiet voice from behind Keanu. "Is that really him?" a teenage boy asked his mother. "That's Keanu Reeves, right?" His mother nodded. "Yes, sweetie. That's him." Keanu heard. He smiled gently. But his eyes stayed on Elon. Elon leaned in, his voice low, sharp, just loud enough to sting. "I'm just saying, man. You're Keanu Reeves. You dodged bullets, saved the world, survived assassins. I thought you were smarter than wearing superstition around your neck like it's armor." That was the final push. Not because Keanu was offended, but because the moment demanded truth. And Keanu Reeves always answers with truth. He leaned forward slowly, deliberately. Not to argue, to reveal. His voice was calm, deep, and steady, so steady, it made everything else around feel unstable. "This," he said, gently lifting the crucifix into his palm so it lay flat, "isn't superstition. It's memory. It's pain. It's 1,000 nights I didn't think I'd make it, and the one reason I did." Silence. Total silence. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade. And for once, Elon had nothing to say. Everyone leaned in. Keanu spoke softly, not to impress, but to reveal. "I wore this cross," he said, "the night I sat beside my mother's hospital bed as she took her last breath. I wore it when I felt nothing at all, and it reminded me I still could." He didn't say it with emotion. He didn't need to. His words carried weight, the kind that silenced an entire room. "It's not the metal that matters," he continued. "It's what it represents, not belief in some man in the sky, but something deeper. Faith. In meaning. In pain having a purpose." Every eye in the cabin turned toward him. Slowly. Silently. No one pretended not to listen anymore. The older man up front leaned back, arms crossed, nodding. The teenage boy stared in awe. The woman with the book closed it, completely still. Elon blinked, but didn't reply. Not yet. Because how do you argue with that kind of truth? You don't. You stall. And that's exactly what he did. "Sure," Elon said after a pause, shrugging lightly, "personal experiences. I get it. But the world doesn't run on feelings, Keanu. It runs on logic. Science. Progress." Keanu gave a faint smile. "You confuse logic with wisdom. Progress with purpose." That landed. Hard. So hard, a woman in the aisle seat whispered, "Wow." Elon leaned back, face tight. It was the first time he looked even slightly shaken. Keanu looked out the window, breathed, and added something no one expected. "I've seen people die with everything, money, power, fame, and still feel empty. And I've seen people with nothing hold on to something like this, and feel peace no billionaire will ever know." It wasn't a mic drop. It was a soul drop. The kind of truth that echoes without sound. Elon said nothing. The silence around him said everything. One passenger leaned toward his seatmate, whispering, "I didn't know he was that deep." Another tapped his phone, saying, "This is going viral." And it was, phones had come out quietly, respectfully, recording fragments of a moment that didn't feel real. That's when the flight attendant approached. She looked unsure, caught between doing her job and witnessing something sacred. She leaned toward Elon. "Sir, would you like a drink?" He nodded slightly. Then she turned to Keanu. "Mr. Reeves, would you like anything?" Keanu smiled kindly. "No, thank you." As she stood upright, she whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "Thank you for that." She walked away quickly, trying to stay professional, but everything had changed. Keanu hadn't just spoken. He'd reminded an entire cabin what it means to believe. Elon still stared at his phone, searching for logic. But Keanu? Keanu had already spoken the kind of truth logic can't reach. And if you're still here, if something in you stirred during that moment, then don't scroll. Hit that like button. Drop a 9 in the comments if you've ever believed there's more to life than reason. Because what's coming next? Elon won't be ready. And honestly, neither will you. By the 20-minute mark, the air had changed. Not turbulence. Tension. The kind that doesn't shake the plane, it shakes egos. Elon sat stiff, eyes darting between his phone and the crucifix still glowing faintly on Keanu's chest. He looked like a man trying to rewrite the last 10 minutes of his life. Keanu, meanwhile, hadn't moved. He was calm. Steady. Present. His breathing soft. His hands resting gently near the tray table. That necklace? Still. Unbothered. Unapologetic. And somehow, that bothered Elon the most. Elon was used to dominating conversations, with facts, with force, with sheer presence. But Keanu hadn't argued. Hadn't bragged. Hadn't even raised his voice. And yet, the entire plane was listening to him. Not to the billionaire. Not to the empire builder. But to the quiet man in seat 2A, wearing worn sneakers and a symbol that had split the room. Elon wasn't done, though. Pride never lets go that easily. He leaned forward again, this time, less smug, but more sharp. You know, he said, louder now so others could hear, faith is a crutch for people who can't face randomness. The universe doesn't care. There's no plan. Just physics. Probability. Choices. That necklace? It's just metal. It can't save you. It never could. No one gasped. But no one breathed either. Keanu didn't flinch. He looked at Elon, not like an enemy, not even like a rival. But like a man seeing someone who was lost. Then, in a voice so gentle it made the cabin feel 10 times quieter, he said. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Elon froze. Not angry, confused. Keanu continued, calm and clear. To go through life thinking nothing matters. That we're just particles bumping into each other. That pain has no meaning. That love is just chemicals. That's not science, Elon. That's despair, dressed up like logic. Elon laughed, short, hollow, reflexive. You think meaning is real just because it feels real? Feelings lie. Keanu tilted his head. Keanu didn't flinch. He just looked at Elon and said quietly. So do numbers, when they're read without wisdom. And that's when the second twist happened. A woman, 2 rows back, slowly stood up. She looked to be in her 60s, silver hair neatly tied, a soft cardigan over her shoulders. Excuse me, she said. Her voice was calm, but clear. I wasn't going to say anything, but I lost my son last year. He was 29. Cancer. The cabin froze. No one moved. Before he passed, he told me the only reason he could face it without fear was because of a little cross like that. Just like yours, Mr. Reeves. Elon turned his head toward her. Unsure whether to respond or stay quiet. She stepped fully into the aisle now, her hands slightly trembling. He used to watch your movies when he couldn't sleep. Said they made him feel brave. Said you reminded him that being quiet didn't mean being weak. Her voice caught. She paused, took a breath. So I just wanted to say, thank you. Not for acting. For existing. No one clapped. They didn't need to. Her words wrapped around the cabin like a warm, heavy blanket. Elon didn't speak. He didn't move. Because it wasn't just that he had lost the debate. He finally realized. He was never in one to begin with. Keanu bowed his head, hands folded. Thank you for sharing that, he whispered. The woman sat down. And in doing so, she said more than Elon had with every line of logic he'd thrown. But it didn't end there. From the other side of the cabin, a young man, maybe mid-20s, slowly raised his hand. I grew up atheist, he said. But I still carry something my grandma gave me. Not because I believe in it the way she did, but because I believe in her. And that's enough. Then another voice. Then another. Fragments of real lives. Stories of loss, of love, of hope. And in the center of it all, Keanu Reeves. Silent. Still. Not trying to lead. Just being there. Not a savior. A symbol of stillness. Elon, now clearly shaken, muttered loud enough to hear. "This is insane. You're all acting like he's some kind of prophet." Keanu turned, eyes soft. "No one said I was," he replied. "But maybe ask yourself why you need me not to be." And then, the third twist. Not in the cabin. Online. Elon's phone buzzed once. Then again. Then dozens of times. A video had leaked. The exchange, Elon and Keanu, had hit Twitter. It was already trending. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. And the top one? "You confuse logic with wisdom. Progress with purpose." Keanu Reeves. Elon's own platform had just turned him into a meme. And not the kind he controlled. "Soul over software," read another comment. "The cross carried more weight than the rocket," read another. "The man who owns the skies just got grounded by the man who walks among us." Elon's hand tightened around his phone. He wanted to tweet. To explain. To spin it. But he knew, anything he posted now would only make it worse. Keanu hadn't tried to humiliate him. And that was what made it humiliating. No malice. No ego. No fight. It wasn't a battle. It was a mirror. And Elon had just seen his reflection. In front of an entire cabin of strangers, and now, the entire internet. And if you're still here, if your heart is pounding like ours, drop a 9 in the comments right now. Because what's happening next? Even we aren't ready for it. If you believe that stillness can be stronger than noise, that the softest voice in the room can sometimes carry the loudest truth, then don't move. Because what happens next will break something inside Elon Musk that no engineer can fix. 32,000 feet in the air. Clouds rolling below like waves of silence. In a first-class cabin that had become something no one expected. Not a place of luxury, but a place of truth. Raw. Unfiltered. Human. Elon Musk had gone silent. Not because he was finished. But because he didn't know how to continue. Without digging the hole deeper. He glanced down at his phone. And there it was. The clip had gone viral. Tens of thousands of retweets. Millions of views. Memes. Reactions. Hashtags. Hashtag soul over silicon. Trending in 5 countries. And across from him, Keanu Reeves. Still as stone. Unbothered. Untouched. Unmoved. But then, came the next unraveling. A voice behind the curtain. Not a passenger. A flight attendant. Senior. Experienced. The kind who'd seen everything. Presidents, pop stars, billionaires. Her name was Evelyn. Late 50s. Calm. Steady. She stepped into the cabin. Locked eyes with Keanu. And something shifted. Respect. Not the shallow kind. The kind that says, "I see you." She crouched slightly, so her words stayed between them. "I know this might be unprofessional," she said softly. "But I just wanted to say, thank you. For how you're handling this." Keanu looked up. Nodded. "You're welcome," he replied, voice calm as ever. Elon watched all of it. Like an outsider in a world he used to own. He had built rockets. Shaken governments. Redefined industries. And yet right now, on this flight, he had never felt smaller. That's when it happened. Again. A man in a navy suit stood up. Sharp. Confident. Boardroom energy. I'm sorry, he said. But I can't stay silent anymore. The cabin turned. Elon leaned forward. The man looked at Keanu. That necklace, he said, pointing gently, it's not just metal to him. And I think we've all realized that. Then he turned to Elon. I used to think like you, Mr. Musk. I mocked belief. Laughed at emotion. Trusted only what I could measure. Until my wife got sick. And science had no answers. Logic didn't comfort my kids. When I had nothing left, my 12-year-old daughter gave me a necklace just like his. She said, "Hold this, Daddy. It helps me when I'm scared." And you know what? It helped. He sat back down. No applause. Just the heavy silence of truth landing where it needed to. Elon shifted in his seat. Uncomfortable. Unraveling. Then, it came full circle. A younger passenger, maybe 22, held up his phone. "Mr. Musk," he said gently. "Do you remember tweeting this?" He tapped the screen. Some people are so afraid of being wrong, they stop listening. Elon didn't respond. Because how could he? Keanu didn't say a word either. He didn't need to. The cabin had spoken. The mirror had turned. And Elon was now looking straight into it. Then, a notification sound cut through the silence. Someone's phone screen lit up. A breaking news alert. Keanu Reeves stuns internet with powerful mid-flight response to Elon Musk's anti-faith remark. Elon's jaw tightened. He turned toward Keanu, eyes sharp. "You think you've won something here?" he asked. Keanu met his gaze. Calm. Steady. "There's nothing to win," he said. "Only something to lose. And that's your humanity. If you stop believing in anything but yourself." Elon scoffed. "Easy to say, when the world worships you." Keanu leaned forward. "No one worships me. They just see something in me that you've been too afraid to see in yourself." And right then, it cracked. Elon's breath quickened. His eyes burned. "You don't know me," he snapped. "You don't know what I've sacrificed, what I've built. The pressure. The expectations. You walk around with your calm voice and your tragic backstory like it makes you wiser. I live in the real world. I carry the future. And you get applause for saying nothing." Now, Keanu stayed quiet. Let the words settle like dust. Then softly. "The future doesn't need a man who knows everything. It needs one who feels something." That landed like a punch with no wind-up. No one moved. No one breathed. The turbulence wasn't outside. It was in Elon's chest. His world. His logic. His empire. Suddenly felt hollow. Because Keanu hadn't taken anything from him. He had simply refused to let go. Of something Elon had lost long ago. A young flight attendant, Nicole, stepped forward gently. "Gentlemen, everything okay?" Elon didn't answer. He just stared forward. "Empty." Keanu nodded kindly. "Everything's okay." And it was. For everyone, except Elon Musk. Because as the plane soared through clear skies, one man sat with a cross on his chest. And peace in his soul. While the other sat. With the world in his hands. And nothing in his heart. And the whole world was watching. If you're still here. If your pulse still hasn't slowed since this flight took off. Drop a 9 in the comments right now. If you believe some truths don't need to shout. To shake the world. Because in part 5, Elon tries to fight back. And ends up losing more than just a debate. He loses the cabin. As the tension in the cabin rose, a few passengers caught Elon's attention. "I just saw the clip online," someone whispered. "This is real." People nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of the truth that was cutting through the air. One of them added, "He's getting roasted in the comments." Elon flinched. the truth was hitting deeper when it wasn't coming from a place of anger, but surprise. The awkwardness in the air was palpable. Elon tried to regain control. He stood up, his presence commanding, and addressed the first-class cabin. "This has gone too far." I made a comment. "I didn't attack anyone, but now I'm being painted as the villain just because I question a necklace." Keanu remained still, not defensive, just calm. He didn't need to respond. His silence said everything. Elon, desperate to hold his ground, pressed on. "You all think he's some kind of hero because he told a sad story, because he stayed calm while I spoke the truth. That necklace," he pointed at it, "that's not truth. That's sentimentality. It's myth dressed up as meaning." But then, something unexpected happened. An older woman seated in 3B stood up. Her voice, clear and strong, cut through the tension. "I've been quiet this whole flight, but let me tell you something," she said, turning toward Elon. "I lost my husband in a war you don't even remember. He was a man of science, an engineer, but before his last deployment, he gave me a crucifix just like that one. He said, 'This doesn't make sense, but it helps me be brave.' I've carried it every day since." She stared at Elon, unflinching. "So don't you dare call it sentimentality." The entire cabin fell silent. Keanu gave a small nod of respect. Elon, for the first time, sat back down, not by choice, but because something inside him collapsed. The weight of his own certainty had cracked. Then, the pilot's voice came over the intercom, light-hearted but still serious. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're cruising smoothly over the Atlantic, but I understand there's been some, philosophical turbulence in first class." A chuckle followed. "We just want to remind everyone that we're committed to respect, not just the policy kind, but the human kind. No belief, no symbol, no story should ever be dismissed, up here or down there." A few passengers clapped, soft at first, then louder. Elon, flushed, looked out the window. His power wasn't taken from him, it was surrendered. Keanu hadn't tried to destroy him. He had simply refused to be erased. And that quiet refusal was what unsettled Elon the most. Then, the teenage boy from earlier stood up, holding something in his hand. It was a notebook. He walked over to Keanu and whispered, "Can you sign this?" Keanu smiled, signed the notebook, and handed it back. "You're even cooler in real life," the boy added. Keanu didn't laugh. He simply said, "Thank you." The cabin watched, spellbound. Here was a boy with a dream, a man with grace, and a billionaire who, for the first time, didn't know what to say. And then, the final blow, subtle but sharp. A passenger behind Elon leaned forward and said just loud enough for those nearby to hear, "You picked the wrong soul to mock." Elon heard every word. Truth doesn't have to shout, it just has to arrive. If you're feeling the shift, the silence, the strange ache when arrogance meets grace, like this video and drop a 9 in the comments. In part 6, we'll see what happens when Elon tries to recover his image and ends up losing something far more personal, his sense of self. But for now, the first-class cabin had quieted again, not in the usual way, but with reverence. Keanu had said very little, yet his presence had reshaped the atmosphere. The crucifix, once just jewelry, now glowed with meaning. It wasn't about the object itself, but the way it made everyone reflect on their own beliefs. Elon, for the first time, felt small. His empire of ideas, his logic, his control, all felt insignificant in this moment. Keanu hadn't tried to take anything from him. He had simply reminded him of something he'd lost long ago. Elon's phone buzzed with notifications, headlines from everywhere, Keanu versus Elon. The flight that exposed the line between soul and silicon. Tech billionaire mocked faith and got schooled by stillness. Elon's chest tightened. It wasn't anger, but something older. Doubt. Across the aisle, Keanu pulled out a small, faded photograph. He held it gently before placing it on the tray table, face down. Elon, curious, asked, "Who's in the photo?" Keanu looked up. "My mother. Taken 2 weeks before she passed." She gave it to me, said I would need something to hold on to when the world got too loud. Elon wanted to dismiss it, to say something clever, but no words came. And for a man who was always ready with a response, that was the real tragedy. A man in a cap stood up. "Hey, sorry to interrupt, but I recognize you, Elon. I've followed your work for years. Big fan. But today, you made me rethink some things." He paused. "My wife's been fighting cancer for 2 years. And you know what helped her get through? Not data, not charts, not tweets, a cross, just like that one." He gestured toward Keanu. "So maybe next time, before you call something a crutch, remember that some people use it to walk again." The cabin went quiet. Elon, humbled, looked down, not in shame, but in the kind of humility that only comes when you realize your influence isn't as big as your ego once told you it was. And then Keanu spoke again. Quietly, but firmly. "Elon, I don't think you're a bad man. I think you're afraid. And that's okay. Most of us are. But mocking what gives others peace won't give you any." Elon looked at him, finally letting down his guard. "I don't know how to believe in anything I can't control," he whispered. Keanu nodded gently. "That's the start of belief, letting go of control." In that moment, something shifted. The cabin was still, no one dared to disrupt the silence. And Nicole, the young flight attendant, stepped forward with a small cup of water. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "I didn't know what else to offer, but you looked like you needed a moment." Keanu smiled. "Thank you." Then, she turned to Elon and handed him a cup. He accepted it with both hands. And just like that, the energy softened. Two men, one known for wisdom, one known for intellect, sharing a moment of silence in the sky, a quiet rebalancing of power between meaning and noise. Elon stared at the crucifix again. Not with mockery, not confusion, but longing. He asked quietly, "Do you think it's too late?" Keanu smiled. "It's never too late to start believing in something greater than yourself." And that, right there, was the real twist. Not that Elon had been humiliated, but that he had been given a chance to change. If you're still with us, if this moment hit you like it did everyone on that flight, take a second and comment 9 if you believe grace has the power to change someone more than shame ever could. In part 7, the world finally catches up to what's happening in the sky, and what they see leaves the internet stunned. Stay tuned because by the time the plane crosses the Atlantic, it's not just flying through the air, it's flying through a storm of global attention. Phones buzzed nonstop in pockets, purses, and on tray tables. News outlets picked up the story. Clips from the first-class cabin spread like wildfire. What started as a tense exchange between Elon Musk and Keanu Reeves had become something much bigger. It was now a public debate about arrogance, belief, and truly listening. Elon stared at his screen, as his own face froze in mid-smirk, mocked for belittling Keanu's necklace. The caption read, "I thought logic replaced superstition long ago." Below that, millions of comments, harsh, brutal even. One said, "This is what happens when a man builds rockets but loses his soul." Keanu hadn't moved. He remained calm, sipping his water, looking out the window like nothing was happening. And that's part of the power, he wasn't trying to prove anything. Elon was used to backlash, sure, but this wasn't the same. This wasn't just disagreement, it was a wake-up call. People weren't just choosing sides, they were sharing their stories. Their faith, their pain, their beliefs. Photos of their crucifixes, lockets, prayer beads, every one of them telling the world, "It may not make sense to you, but it saved me." And Elon? He sat in the middle of it, unable to control what was happening. He couldn't fix it with data, formulas, or tweets. He had no answer. Across from Keanu, a woman gently leaned forward. "I saw the video," she said. "You didn't have to say anything more. But thank you for what you did say." Keanu nodded. "I didn't say it for attention. I said it because someone needed to hear it. Maybe even him." He gestured toward Elon, not in ridicule, but in sincerity. Elon looked up, slowly, as if those words had pierced the fog of viral hashtags and online debates. For the first time, he spoke, not as the man with all the answers, but as a man with questions. What if I was wrong? Keanu turned to him fully. You weren't wrong, he said, you were certain. There's a difference. Elon blinked. Is certainty bad now? Keanu replied, not when it doesn't blind you to someone else's truth. But when it does, it becomes dangerous. The cabin went quiet. Elon didn't respond, but his silence spoke volumes. For a man who was always quick with a tweet or a reply, the fact that he had nothing to say spoke louder than words ever could. Then, another twist. A message popped up on Elon's phone. It was from his board. Tesla does not endorse Mr. Musk's personal views on religion. Elon read it and felt the weight of those words. His foundation, his people, distancing themselves from him. He looked around. The seat felt smaller. The cabin felt tighter. For the first time, the man who had built his empire on certainty felt small. And Keanu saw it. But he didn't gloat. He didn't lean in. He just quietly said, losing influence doesn't mean losing yourself. Sometimes, it's the only way to find who you were meant to be. Elon looked at him, tears welling up, not out of guilt, but confusion. He had spent his life mastering the complexities of the world, but couldn't understand something so simple, presence. Just being there. Then came the final blow. A little girl, no older than 7 or 8, walked up to him. She was holding her father's hand. She stopped at Elon's seat, looked up, and said softly, "My grandma says when someone's really mean, it's because they forgot who they were." Elon didn't know what to say. The girl reached into her pocket, pulled out a tiny angel keychain, and offered it to him. "You can borrow this," she said. "It helps me when I get scared." Elon took it, shaking. "Thank you," he said. "That's very kind of you." The little girl smiled. "You're welcome." And just like that, the man who sent cars into space was brought back down to Earth by the simple act of grace from a child. The plane continued flying. The engines hummed, but everything had changed. Elon had changed. Not completely, not overnight, but something had cracked open. Keanu leaned back, eyes closed, not to sleep, but to rest. His job here, whatever it was, seemed done. He hadn't fought, he hadn't argued, he had simply been. And somehow, that was enough. If this moment reached you, if you feel a little lighter, a little softer in your heart, then you already know what to do. Hit like, comment 9 if you believe humility is stronger than dominance, because in part 8, Keanu passes something on that no one expects, and what he gives away will inspire millions long after the flight lands. Above the cold, still Atlantic, a warm current of something human was flowing through the cabin. It wasn't turbulence, it was transformation. One by one, the people on that plane weren't just watching, they were becoming part of it. It wasn't because of a speech, or a scandal, or some grand performance. It was because of presence. Quiet. Consistent. Unshaken. Keanu had invited them all into stillness. And now, something sacred was happening. As the little girl walked back to her seat, Elon sat frozen, holding the tiny angel keychain like it was made of gold. And the man who had mocked Keanu was now quietly revered by strangers from all walks of life. Keanu, however, wasn't basking in any glory. He wasn't performing. He was just being. And that had been more than enough. Keanu reached up, touched the crucifix on his chest, and felt its weight, the memories, the pain, the prayer. Without a word, he unclasped it, and the sound of the tiny metal piece falling into his hand was almost imperceptible, but everyone felt it. Nicole, the flight attendant, noticed first. She stepped forward cautiously. "Mr. Reeves, is everything okay?" she asked. Keanu smiled softly. "More than okay," he said, standing up and walking slowly to the back of first class. All eyes followed him, even Elon Musk's, who was watching, confused but intrigued. Keanu stopped near a young boy, no older than 12, wearing a medical mask. His eyes lit up when he saw Keanu. The boy's mother gasped, but Keanu gently raised his finger to his lips, inviting silence. He knelt beside the boy. "Hi there, I'm Keanu," he said quietly. The boy's eyes widened. "I know," he whispered. Keanu smiled and pointed to the boy's yellow medical bracelet. "I had one of those too, a few actually," he said. "Hospitals aren't fun, but sometimes they show us how strong we really are." Then, Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver crucifix, the one that had started it all. He held it up, looking the boy in the eyes. "This has gotten me through a lot. Maybe it's time someone else carries it for a while." The boy blinked, then slowly reached out and accepted the necklace. His mother cried. Nearby passengers were moved, and someone quietly took a photo, not for social media, but because they knew this was something rare. Keanu stood up and gently placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. "You're stronger than most men I know," he said. The boy smiled. "So are you," he replied. Keanu returned to his seat, where Elon was waiting. "Why him?" Elon asked, voice filled with curiosity and a touch of awe. Keanu sat down and took a deep breath. "Because he still has time to believe in something before the world tells him not to." Elon looked away, his eyes glossy. Then, in an unexpected moment of vulnerability, he pulled out the tiny angel keychain the little girl had given him earlier and placed it on the armrest between them. "Maybe we're both carrying something now," he said quietly. Keanu glanced at him. "Maybe we're finally going in the same direction." The flight continued, but something had shifted. No dramatic speeches, no cameras, just two men who had shared a moment of quiet understanding. When the plane landed, the energy in the cabin was different. It wasn't just relief, it was reverence. Keanu and Elon sat in silence, reflecting on what had just happened. The story had exploded online, but not as a scandal. People weren't attacking Elon. They were reaching out, asking him to listen, to believe in something real. Elon read the messages, then turned to Keanu. "I thought I was losing everything," he said. "Turns out, I was just being handed something else." Keanu smiled softly. "Sometimes the most valuable things can't be built. They can only be received." When the doors opened, the boy held up the crucifix. "I'll take care of it," he said. Keanu knelt beside him. "You don't need to take care of it," he said gently. "Just let it remind you to take care of yourself." Keanu walked out, followed by Elon. When a press officer approached Elon, he simply said, "Tell them I have nothing to say." "Not yet." Then, a week later, a short video appeared. Elon Musk, alone, no suit, no background, just him. He looked into the camera and said, "I mocked something I didn't understand." That's what fear does. It dresses itself as intellect. But someone on that flight reminded me what intelligence really looks like: humility, presence, stillness. He paused. "I'm not here to rebrand. I'm here to relearn. Thank you, Keanu." And to the boy who now carries the necklace, thank you for reminding me what it means to carry hope. That video went viral, not because it was shocking, but because it was sincere. Keanu didn't respond publicly. He didn't need to. He had already spoken through his actions, no words, just presence. In a world constantly looking for noise, sometimes the quietest moments are the loudest. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect on what truly matters. If you believe in the power of humility and hope, hit like, comment yes if you think we can all learn from moments like this, and subscribe for more stories that remind us all of what it means to be human.